South Africa takes Israel to court over Gaza. South Africa recently set off a diplomatic firestorm by filing a case at the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of apartheid and persecution against Palestinians. Drawing on the immense human suffering in Gaza, South Africa alleges Israel's policies meet the threshold for genocide under the Genocide Convention. Israel fiercely contests these allegations as baseless and driven by anti-Israel bias. As both countries trade barbs, attention turns to the ICJ and its willingness to exercise jurisdiction despite the complex geopolitics. For many in the global South, South Africa's legal gambit encapsulates growing frustration with the ICJ's perceived inability to impartially handle disputes involving influential countries. However, others argue South Africa's framing goes too far and risks undermining legitimate criticism of Israel's conduct. Does South Africa have a valid case? South Africa draws extensive parallels between Israeli policies towards Palestinians and its own apartheid regime's oppression of blacks. It contends that Israel systematically fragments Palestinian land and rights to maintain Jewish domination, meeting the criteria for apartheid. Furthermore, South Africa alleges that the dire humanitarian conditions, high casualties, and destruction in Gaza resulting from Israel's 15-year blockade and military operations demonstrate genocidal intent. Israel asserts that its control of Palestinian territory stems from legitimate self-defense needs given ongoing security threats. It claims the economic troubles in Gaza are due to Hamas misgovernance. Israel also argues that the high proportion of civilians killed in wars result from Hamas embedding forces in populated areas, rather than any intention to target or exterminate civilians. But rights groups counter that the vastly disproportionate death tolls, chronic fuel and medicine shortages engineered by Israel's chokehold over Gaza, and overt discrimination faced by Arabs under occupation strongly indicate institutional persecution, if not outright genocide. Is the ICJ biased against the global South? The ICJ's patchy record in cases involving major powers has fueled skepticism over its ability to impartially adjudicate disputes with countries like Israel. Critics point to selection bias in the bench, the court's Eurocentric legal tradition, and its reliance on the UN Security Council dominated by the US, UK, and France for enforcement. They compare the ICJ's swift reaction to entertain Ukraine's case against Russia over the invasion to years of perceived hesitancy towards urgently addressing the Gaza crisis. This, they argue, reveals double standards favoring Western security concerns. However, others contend that the ICJ has increasingly incorporated non-European legal viewpoints and norms. With recent judgments against Uganda and Myanmar, the court has demonstrated some willingness against larger global players. The merits and politics of each case differ substantially, complicating direct comparisons. Can the ICJ deliver justice? The ICJ undoubtedly remains our best hope for peaceful adjudication of international disputes as per international law. But for it to serve as a truly universal arbiter, it must double down on reforming institutional biases that breed skepticism, especially across Asia and Africa. Even if the ICJ exercises jurisdiction in this explosive case, enforcement of any verdict against Israel will remain a monumental challenge given likely opposition from the US and certain European allies at the Security Council. Yet, South Africa's stand captures growing demands from emerging powers seeking equitable access to international legal mechanisms. The case epitomizes broader calls to reconfigure global institutions to better represent contemporary multipolar realities. Irrespective of the legal outcome, South Africa has signaled that patience is running thin with an international system perceived as persistently failing the oppressed. Its bold gambit has electrified both supporters and critics. But it undoubtedly has forced scrutiny of long-simmering issues plaguing international adjudicatory credibility and efficacy from a global South perspective. Tell us what you think. Is South Africa right to file a case against Israel? Do you think Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians? Should Netanyahu be brought to justice? Have the United States and other Western powers lost your respect? Join the conversation, send us your messages. Share your insights and contribute to the dialogue. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. Kilimanjaro News Network broadcasts in Swahili, Arabic, English, and French.